My name is Jacob Adams. I'm a fitness and leadership coach. I help people just like you get to the next level. Have you been insulted or made to feel like less than, or maybe you just insinuated someone told you something or gave you an indirect statement that you yourself examined to be somewhat derogatory, or it made you're just caught in your feelings, right? You're in your feels. Or one of my friends used to say, getting lost in her sauce. I know that most of us, like myself, have been told something. As a matter of fact, it's rare that we won't be exposed to statements or actions of others that won't allow us to feel certain things. So I remember one of the first things that I was told that I can remember that really made things shift for me was I had a crush on my high school crush, and she told me we were hanging out in a car. I tell this story often. We're hanging out in a car with my other friends, and we were all just talking, and she saw my calves, and she said, "You know, my calves are bigger than yours." She was a cheerleader, and she had muscular calves. It was one of the things I liked about her, and so I felt like the weakling. I thought, I'll never get this girl. And I started working out the next day. I called my friend Zeph, and I said, someone just, you know who just told me that I had small calves. And I started running. I fell down behind Long John Silver's, and I was bleeding. I woke up, I stood back up, I looked straight ahead, I said, nothing will stop me, not even this. So many years later, I've built a fitness company, sold supplements, a supplement company. Here we are. I'm training online through this medium, reaching people like yourself. And here we are, right? And it started with so there was a catalyst of sorts that really drove me to really commit. There's that key word again, commit to the journey of physical freedom and power and development. Okay, it started with an insult, or what I felt was an insult. It was. I can now examine back and say she meant to, there was a slight of, insult there. It was a very slight insult there. And here we are. She later admitted that she did, want to sort of trigger something within me, and she succeeded. Another time I remember, I'm going to give you some key ideas here. My dad was born with cerebral palsy, not born with genetically. He had trouble in his birth. My grandma had him, and there was complications. I think his umbilical cord got wrapped around his neck, and there was not enough oxygen to his brain. So he has like a small, cerebral palsy like symptoms, like a little bit of a slur in his speech. It's minor. The guy's fully intelligent and, very cognitive to speak, and a great guy, a very loving guy. I'm very grateful for my father. Still, when I was growing up as a kid, people would say, "Why does your dad walk so funny?" He had a very small limp, very, very small limp. And I didn't notice it. I didn't know what they were talking about. I felt my dad was normal, but I started feeling sort of embarrassed by that, and it sucks to say that. It's just what happened, and it's even saying this live right now or in front of a camera. It's kind of painful. It kind of awakens a lot of those old emotions, like that embarrassment, and why are people saying that about my dad? And there were very heavy feelings, and so that my dad did end up being overweight. And that was one of the sort of that, plus the girl telling me that, and I didn't want to be overweight like my dad. And I've seen people in my family have obesity. As a teenager, I saw that, and it just spurred me to just be more serious about my fitness. So like those insults I see now as like things that just stirred passion and anger and frustration in me, and led me to take fitness very seriously. Some other insults that, little things, like I remember one time when I started training, I had this old car, and somebody told me, I didn't expect you to have such an old car as a trainer. I thought you'd have something way cooler, you know? And I remember feeling, see, I had come from humble beginnings. My family had divorced, you know, that was another trigger for me. Like, my family had divorced when I was a teenager, and my mother had helped me get my first car. And, you know, there was somebody telling me, like, it was too old. And I knew it was an old car. It just, I felt like just less confident about my car. And that drove me to want to get a better car, which was, again, a good thing. This was years and years ago. And slowly I've continued that path to, you know, with time, upgrade my car within a reasonable time frame. And here we are, so many years later, just sharing you that sometimes we get insulted and it bothers us to the point where we do something about it. And today I wanted to go into how to learn to identify these insults or these triggers, these moments in time where we can pick up on something and examine it and unpackage a sort of gift, if you will. You know, one of the things I've been called is, you know, I'm intense, you know, you're intense. Like, I never thought that's an insult, but people use that, you know, you're too intense or something. You may have been called ugly or fat or too young or too old or too slow or too something. You know, we live in a world where people want to tell you things. They want to cast their judgment onto you and label you to something. And we sometimes don't understand that these people themselves have been told something, and they could be just projecting that hate or that hurt onto you. And the hate kind of continues to spread like some sort of virus. So what, you know, clearly I've been through things, right? I've been through things like you have, situations that spurred me into processing deep emotions. And today we'll be inviting you on that journey to look at things that you've been through or currently going through, or things you were told maybe this week, and see how we can unpackage those to find your own strategies, solutions, inner guidances, and some of the key ideas as to what to think about those things. So I recently, for example, I started using the stack by Garrett J. White in The Warrior's Way, and this video I actually made right after. I'm making a few minutes after I did the stack. The stack is this tool that is used in The Warrior's Way to analyze a trigger, and I've talked about it before. I just want to take a moment to share what I discovered in today's findings. You don't necessarily need to use a stack if you don't want to. It's not something I have access to give you or whatever. You'd have to look up how to do that. And it's a very lengthy process. In other words, it's not something I could just tell you in a 18-minute video. But we can take the ideas, the main strokes, and invite you on a journey as to celebrating insults. And then soon enough, I'm sure, we can find a way for you to start utilizing your pains, your insults, your triggers to get to your strategy, solution, perspective, shifts in perspective. The path to have acquired where I'm at now in front of this TV, in front of your screen, and in front of this camera, celebrating and loving triggers and pain and insults, loving them, in other words, appreciating them for their beauty, has taken a significant journey. Again, going from being told I had small calves, seeing experiencing what's known as the unlived life of the father. You know, I truly hate that my dad has diabetes and is overweight and he had a divorce. I truly hate that. And in many ways, as his son, I see myself as a chance to correct and live in a better way than he may have, or you know, has not yet lived up to this point. And in many ways, I do feel his pain and the things that he likely was told as growing up, and things that he's experienced, and insults that he's experienced, you know. And so in many ways, I feel that's a big part of my purpose. And getting in front of this TV, again, in front of this camera, and speaking this way isn't necessarily easy. It just takes, this is my purpose, this is my work, this is what I do. And that's fine. That's fine. So let's get into it. I know it's a big idea, and we're going to look to crunch it into small constructs, for you to process and get into it. Because they say, I'll put it like this. I'll put it like this. You're not. Imagine if I were to say, well, you're not too slow to understand that, are you? So, time out. What emotions did you experience? That was not at all the truth. I'm just letting you know that you see how life works. That someone could say something, and now we experience that emotion, and now we have to process where they're coming from. And maybe if we're insulted, or we feel triggered, there's something there for us to get. There's something there for us to uncover, some beauty there for us, if we're brave enough and have the courage enough and the strength enough to uncover. Because the other option is to regress into a state of shame, guilt, self-esteem issues, lower confidence, and all types of stuff. That's the option. So it's face it with courage, or regress into a well of lack of self-esteem. What do we want? What are you going to do? What would you do between the two? So today I'm inviting you on a quest of courage and a quest of self-discovery. Okay? So let's get into it. Because, I don't recall this stuff being something that was so common as it was. This is like Psychology 101 or 202 broken down into very quick tidbits for us to process on a daily basis. I don't recall this being normal as a normal conversation prior to 2014, because the psychology is moving at such a fast rate right now. The way we are adopting it as a society is moving at such a fast rate right now that people are becoming healthier. There are healthier perspectives in the overall consciousness of the mainstream. It's almost like in fitness, right? It's so common for people to have a protein shake, a smoothie, a green smoothie, have their multivitamins, have their fish oil. That's a very common idea now. And in that same token, now it's very common to analyze the trigger. It's very common to understand the beauty in pain, and to process, like what Viktor Frankl talked about, is to bear our cross or stuff like that. They're very common ideas that at once, maybe prior to 2014, as I recall, it wasn't so common. It was more common to deal with things like through a little drinking, a little promiscuity. Like that was the way to do it. And now we're living in a time where people don't want to run from their issues so much, but actually face them head on. And that's what this conversation is about. So the first thing that I would like for you to do is understand that the insult reveals more about them than it does you. Understand that an insult reveals more about them than it does you. If someone calls you too fat or something like that, understand that may come from a place of shame or guilt or anger within them. And in other words, if someone says that with a derogatory sense, as a trainer, I sometimes have to tell some people, you are in an unhealthy stage of body fat. There's a difference between giving someone a scientific metric and then hating someone for their position or their health or their status. People in my life, one of my uncles just lost his leg because of diabetes, and he never took care of himself enough to have dealt with that. That's a painful truth. I don't like to say that. It broke my mother's heart to see her process that. And as you can understand, things like that drive me to be more and more committed to training, to the work, to the fight for sobriety and healthy living and healthy eating. Examine the feelings: insult, sadness, depression, self-esteem issues, rage, undervalued, confused. There's all types of feelings that this trigger may lead you. What are you feeling? It could be insult. You feel like less self-esteem because someone told you this. What are you feeling because of this trigger or this insult? Examine it. And sometimes you'll feel a lot of it is sadness. A lot of it is insult, rage, lack of being valued, things like that. It could be anything, but actually feel it and allow yourself to release it and talk about it in a healthy space. You don't have to tell that person. Take some time, journal it, write it down, tell a friend, tell a counselor, tell a therapist. There's all types of ways to release it in a healthy way. Write a song. I do the stack, right, with the Warriors Way. That's a thing that we do. So do it. Find some way to do it. Be grateful for the chance to grow. Understand that this trigger, this insult, is a chance for you to grow. And it's not going to be obvious. Like, it's not what it's inviting you to do is not going to be obvious. That's why you're going to have to unveil it. One thing that we do with the Warriors Way is we say, okay, this person told me this, and that means this. And then we reverse it and say, okay, well, I told the person that, and it means that. And what's the opposite? The person told me this. Okay, for example, I've made a video about this. Okay, so someone says, okay, you're too ugly or something. Okay, well, they told me that. That means this. Okay, so what if you told them you told them they're too ugly, and that means that. And then the opposite is they told you you're beautiful, and that means this. Okay, which of these is more likely? And then you create it. So there's a process to understanding the depths, and then you pick the story that makes more sense and will likely get you an outcome you want. In that discovery, you find a revelation. The revelation I found today, I'll share with you here in a second. From the insult I was told. The ego is usually what is hurt. You usually are happy. What that means is deep inside yourself, you're actually fine. It's usually your ego that is getting offended. It's usually your ego that's like didn't like the way things worked out. Okay? Expand your being. Expand your consciousness, your capability, your courage, your capability. It's parts of the ego die. It's the parts of the ego that die. It's not you. You're fine. You're fine, okay? It's deep inside it's just the way you didn't like certain things about what it meant to your status or certain things the way you were planning it. But you yourself are fine and are being invited to the next level of consciousness, capability, perspective, shifts, leadership. You're being invited to that next level, okay? So what you want to do is awaken to your new perspective. Stay there and repeat, okay, the cycle. When the more pain is on the way, meaning what that means is that more pain will come even as you grow. And just see pain then as a gift for you to grow. Pain, the insult, the injury, whatever it is, see it as a pain to grow. I was in a car accident. I saw life has me here for a purpose. I know it. Okay? The big revelation I got this morning was that pain comes, pleasure comes. When pleasure comes, enjoy it. When pain comes, be grateful for it. Insults come, challenges come, be grateful for it. And uncover the gift, the consciousness that it's asking you to expand and be. Okay? Naturally, someone might hear this and think, I'm full of it. Those of you that are awakened and ready to hear this, understand I'm coming from a sincere place. This is Jacob Adams. Comment below. Let me know what triggers you. Bye.